Welcome to Dreamscape of History. Here, we journey not through timelines and battles, but through the echoes of stories carried on the quiet winds of time. We invite you to let the past drift softly into your dreams. Allow your mind to settle, your breath to deepen, and your body to relax. Let the gentle rhythm of my voice be your guide as we explore the quiet corners of human experience. Tonight, our journey takes us to a land once touched by an insatiable fever, a land where the very earth was whispered to hold the essence of dreams. We venture into the American West to walk alongside the sleeping ghosts of the gold rush, not the rush of men, but the quiet echoes of their hopes, their struggles, and their eventual slumber in the vast and timeless canyons of California. Lie back, close your eyes, and let these distant memories carry you to rest. Before the fever, before the dreams of fortune transformed a nation, there was simply the land, a vast, breathtaking expanse stretching from ancient mountains to an endless ocean. This was California, a canvas of untouched wilderness, where time itself seemed to flow with the unhurried rhythm of the seasons. For millennia, the only footsteps upon this earth belonged to the indigenous people. Their lives, a quiet symphony with nature, deeply woven into the fabric of the land. They understood its whispers, its generosity, its occasional fury. Their traditions, their stories, were as ancient and as enduring as the very bedrock of the mountains. Then came others, Spanish missionaries, establishing a chain of quiet settlements along the coast. Later, Mexican rancheros, their lives a slow pastoral dance, herding cattle across rolling hills under the generous sun. It was a life of simple rhythms, of vast, open spaces, and a pervasive tranquility that few outsiders ever truly observed. This land was not a place of hurried ambition. It was a place of contemplation, of patient waiting. The rivers flowed clear and undisturbed, carving their timeless paths through the canyons. The forests stood silent and deep, sheltering ancient secrets. The air itself seemed to hum with an unbroken stillness. And into this profound quiet came a man named John Sutter, a Swiss immigrant with grand visions who dreamed of building an agricultural empire, a new Helvetia in the heart of this tranquil wilderness. He acquired vast tracts of land, established a thriving fort, and began to cultivate his dream. To fulfill his vision, Sutter needed timber, and so, in the quiet rolling foothills of the Sierra Nevada, on a crisp winter morning in January of 1848, he sent a foreman, James Marshall, to oversee the construction of a new sawmill on the banks of the American River. It was here, on January 24th, as Marshall inspected the mill race, that the course of history and the dreams of countless souls took an unforeseen turn. He noticed something shimmering, glinting in the shallow, clear water, something undeniably bright, undeniably heavy. It was a piece of metal, about the size of a pea, yellow, unlike any other rock he had ever seen. He picked it up. He tested it. He hammered it. It was malleable. He heated it. It remained unchanged. The discovery was almost impossibly quiet. A single glint in a flowing river, a small, unassuming fragment holding the weight of unimaginable possibility. Marshall's heart must have quickened, but around him, the river still flowed, the wind still whispered, and the vast, ancient quiet of California remained, for a fleeting moment longer, undisturbed. He brought the piece of metal to Sutter, who initially tried to keep the find the secret, but secrets, carried on the currents of human desire, rarely remain buried. The news began to spread, not like a roar, but like a whisper on the wind, a fascinating rumor, an impossible tale, growing stronger with each passing day. The dream had been planted, small, silent, and insidious, awaiting the right conditions to burst forth and awaken a sleeping continent. The whisper from Sutter's Mill did not remain a whisper for long. Carried in letters, in the breathless reports of sailors, and in the bold headlines of Eastern newspapers, the rumor of gold became a call, then a roar, then a fever that gripped the nation. The dream, once planted, had taken root, and now its tendrils reached across the continent, pulling at the hearts of thousands. From farms in New England, from offices in New York, from workshops in Ohio, a great migration was stirring, a tide of humanity drawn westward by the gravity of a single, shimmering promise. They faced a choice, a decision born of geography and means. To travel by land, a slow and steady pilgrimage across a vast, uncharted continent, or to travel by sea, a long and isolated journey upon the endless expanse of the ocean. Both paths were long, both were arduous, and both were a journey into a dream. For those who chose the land, the journey began in the bustling frontier towns of Missouri. Here they gathered in the thousands, their covered wagons forming vast, temporary cities on the edge of the Great Plains. They were a river of people, waiting for the spring grasses to grow tall enough to feed their oxen, preparing to pour themselves into the immense emptiness of the West. The journey, once begun, was one of rhythm and repetition. The slow, constant turning of the wagon wheels, the gentle creak of the wooden axles, the soft thud of oxen hoofs on the dusty trail. Day after day the rhythm was the same. Wake before dawn, yoke the animals, walk beside the wagon, and watch the sun trace its long, silent arc across an impossibly wide sky. They moved through a landscape of profound scale. The prairie stretched before them like a great, green ocean, the tall grasses swaying in the ceaseless wind. The sky was everything, a dome of brilliant blue by day, and at night a blanket of black velvet so thick with stars it seemed you could reach out and touch them. The nights were quiet, the wagons drawn into a circle, the low murmur of conversation fading as the embers of the campfire died. There was only the sound of the wind, the distant call of a lone coyote, and the profound, humbling silence of the great American wilderness. Slowly, painstakingly, the landscape began to change. The flat plains gave way to rolling hills, and then to the rugged, imposing majesty of the Rocky Mountains. The air grew thinner, the trails steeper, but the rhythm continued. The slow climb, the patient progress, and the quiet determination fueled by a dream of a golden valley just beyond the next peak. Others chose the sea. Their journey began in the crowded, noisy ports of the Atlantic. They boarded tall sailing ships, their sails like great white wings against the sky, and left the familiar world behind. For them, the journey was one of profound isolation. For weeks, for months, the view never changed, only the endless, shifting surface of the ocean and the sky above. Their days were governed by the ship's bell, by the wind in the sails, and by the gentle, constant rocking of the vessel. They read, they wrote letters home, they watched the waves, and they dreamed. Some chose the longest path, the demanding but steady voyage around the entire continent of South America, a journey of 17,000 miles. They sailed through the warm waters of the equator, and then south into the cold, desolate beauty of Cape Horn, a place of immense waves and powerful winds, a silent, elemental world of gray seas and icy air. A faster, though no less challenging route was through Panama. These travelers would disembark on the coast and make their way through 50 miles of dense, humid jungle, a world of thick green canopy, strange animal calls, and air so heavy it felt like breathing water. It was a feverish, disorienting passage, another kind of dream, before they reached the Pacific and boarded another ship for the final leg of their journey north. By land or by sea, they were all pulled by the same invisible thread, a collective dream of a new life, of a fortune found not in the familiar soil of home, but in the unproven promise of a distant land. And as they finally arrived, trickling through the mountain passes or sailing through the Golden Gate into San Francisco Bay, they brought their dream with them, ready to pour it into the quiet canyons and serene rivers of California. And so they arrived, pouring from the mountain passes and the crowded harbors into the heart of the dream. But the dream, as they found it, was not a glittering city of gold. It was a rugged land of canyons and rivers, of mud-caked camps and stark, simple existence. The gold was not lying on the ground waiting to be gathered. It was hidden, locked in the cold grip of the earth, and it demanded to be earned. The true story of the gold rush was not one of sudden explosive wealth. It was a story of repetition, a story of quiet, unending labor. It was the rhythm of the miner, standing for hours in the icy mountain stream, the cold water numbing his hands, his back aching from stooping. It was the sound of the pickaxe, a lonely rhythmic echo against the canyon wall. It was the feel of heavy, wet gravel, sifted again and again and again. The hypnotic, circular motion of the miner's pan, swirling water and sand, his eyes straining for that one elusive glint of color. The sound of the rocker, a wooden cradle being rhythmically rocked back and forth, lulling almost, as it washed dirt from stones. Life in the camps was simple and raw. Men lived in canvas tents or rough-hewn log cabins, the nights lit only by the soft glow of a candle or the low embers of a fire. The air was filled with the smell of damp earth, wood smoke and pine. After a long day of back-breaking, monotonous work, there was little energy for grand celebration. There was only the simple meal, the mending of tools, and the quiet, shared hope that tomorrow would be the day. For a few, it was a lucky strike, a hidden vein, a pocket of dust that could change a life. But for the vast majority, the dream remained just that, a dream. The gold they found was just enough to buy supplies, just enough to keep the hope alive for one more day, one more week. It was a fever, fueled not by riches but by the tantalizing, quiet possibility. And as slowly as the dream had arrived, it began to fade. The easy gold, the gold found in the riverbeds and streams, was the first to go. The rivers, once clear, now ran muddy and brown, tired from being sifted 1,000 times over. The canyons, once silent, now bore the scars of 1,000 picks, 1,000 shovels. The work became harder, the returns smaller, and one by one the miners began to drift away. The fever finally broke. The frantic energy, which had never been more than a quiet, desperate hope, simply evaporated. The camps, once bustling with this quiet determination, grew silent. The canvas tents, torn by the wind, collapsed back into the earth. The log cabins, their doors creaking on rusted hinges, stood empty, their windows staring like hollow eyes. These were the ghost towns, the true monuments of the gold rush. Not statues of heroes, but quiet, wooden skeletons left behind as the dream moved on. What remains are the echoes, the whisper of the wind through an empty doorway, the glint of a rusted pickaxe half buried in the silt of a riverbed, the faint outline of an old trail fading back into the wilderness. The dream, which had pulled a nation across a continent, had returned to the earth, leaving only these sleeping ghosts to tell its tale.
And so our journey comes to a quiet end. The echoes of the gold rush have faded back into the canyons. The whispers of the miners have been carried away by the wind. The great fever has passed, leaving only the land, the rivers, and the stars, just as they were before. The dream of gold has returned to the earth. And now it is time for your own dreams to begin. You have walked with the sleeping ghosts of the past, and now you can let them go. Let the stories and the images, all of it just drift away like mist in the morning sun. There is nothing left to do, nothing left to see, only the sound of my voice and the gentle, steady rhythm of your own breath. Feel your body growing heavy, your mind growing quiet. Let the stillness of the ancient canyons become your own stillness. Let the quiet of the starlit prairie become your own quiet. You are safe, you are calm, and you are ready for rest. The past drifts softly into dreams, and now you can drift with it. Good night.